will turn our talents to more of these startups. And to do that, we've launched a crowdfunding for OriginClear. So it's called Regulation A, which is for anyone
Yeah.
to fund those activities. But the accredited investors, they get a piece of water on that.
Welcome to the Next Level Income Show, where it's our goal to take your income, your investments, and your life to the next level. I'm your host, Chris Larson. If you haven't yet, get a copy of our book for free at our website, nextlevelincome.com. That's www.nextlevelincome.com. Just click on the book link, and I'll even send you a copy if you put your address in. On today's show, we have Riggs Eckelberry. Riggs is a nationally renowned entrepreneur who deploys his personal break-to-build process to help rebuild the water industry, which has reached a critical breaking point in recent years, despite being essential to the planet's survival. As the founding CEO of OriginClear, Riggs has developed innovative solutions to help businesses face rising water bills by tapping into new investment markets. He is even pioneering the development of water stablecoins, a cryptocurrency backed by water assets. With a diverse background in nonprofit management, oceangoing navigation, and technology disruption, Riggs is uniquely qualified to bring change to an outdated and overrun industry. And today we're going to talk about OriginClear, the history of water in this country, where it's going, and how you can take advantage and potentially profit. Riggs, welcome to the show.
Chris, it's such a pleasure to be talking to you today and up in Asheville. We're in the right side of the country right now.
Yeah, literally and figuratively, right? Yeah, we were chatting before the show. You escaped California right at the beginning of COVID. You're down in Florida, and we were also talking before the show. This topic is really fascinating to me. I'll never forget. I've been following T. Boone Pickens for a long time, and one of the things that T. Boone Pickens says is he likes to pick long-term trends to bet on, which really is how we see things with our demographic-based investing. And we're going to talk about water today. And I mean, it seems to me that there are a lot of problems going on in the western part of the country with water. But before we kind of jump into that, Riggs, if you don't mind sharing a little bit about your background, and why, as you say, why you're so perfectly fit for the solution to the problem that we have.
Well, it's interesting because the water industry, we take water for granted, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
On the
Yeah.
faucet,
Turn on the faucet. Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
all
Oh,
good,
look,
right?
I got a can of water, bottle of water, water out of the faucet, water in my pool. Yeah. Totally take it
All
for
good,
granted.
right? But there's real problems, and the water industry is very resistant to change. They too are like, no, everything's fine. So what my background really is a very international one. My dad was a country manager for Procter and Gamble, so we went from country to country, and he was very well paid, but we were vagabonds basically.
Yeah.
And then I spent a lot of time at sea, for example, in my adult years, as a ship captain, South Pacific, all that wonderful stuff. By the way, it's not as romantic as it's put out to be. Believe me, it's extremely slow. Anyway, so eventually I, lots of adventures, and I ended up in the .com. And that for me was a revelation because it was the time computers were being used for communicating, not just computing, right?
Yeah.
And it opened up a whole thing, and I was part of that gold rush. Got some great exits during that time. And in fact, did some of my best work after year 2000 because that's when the real companies survived, right?
Right. Oh, yeah. Big shakeout. And yeah.
Yeah. So, it was after 2000 that I got a couple really good successes. And then I wound up finally as the COO and president of a company on the way to the NASDAQ. And it, in fact, successfully did make it to the NASDAQ. But, excuse me, the time I saw the seeds of its demise, being the number two, you see everything. And I was like, oh, this place is not gonna do well long term. And also I had the fatal flaw of a number two is that you always want to be number one. And so
Most of us, right? Yeah, I can relate.
like I can do that better. It's a very rare lieutenant that does not want to be the captain. Anyway, so I contacted a fund and I told them, I'd like to be a CEO, and they knew me from my work, and they said, yeah, sounds great. And they helped me start a company. They specialize in going straight into the public markets as penny stock and invest by accredited investors in new technologies. So I was a new technology CEO with a patent and a bright idea, which was to make biofuels out of microalgae,
Yeah.
which wasn't one of those huh ideas. And I had a ball. I I debated T. Boone Pickens. I debated Jim
Oh, wow.
Rogers. I
Yeah.
debated all kinds of people. I remember being on the stage with T. Boone Pickens and saying, an area the size of just the fracking area of the Dakotas would handle all the biofuels of America easily if you just had
Wow.
nice, non-toxic algae ponds.
Yeah.
The problem
Yeah. I
occurred,
mean, like, how deep would a algae pond have to be? A couple feet
oh,
deep, something like that?
2 feet deep, because
Yeah.
the effectiveness, there's a shadow effect.
Yeah.
So they're shallow and they're wide, right?
Wow. Yeah.
The algae wants the sun.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's all kinds of fun stuff, and it was very popular. Stuart Varney said, "You'll be algae man on this program," fun. Uh, so that was great. One small problem, and that is Exxon came up with fracking, and they
Interesting. Yeah.
blew. We forget that at the
Yeah.
time, 2007, 2008, crude was at $120,
Oh, people were talking about peak oil back then.
and
Yeah.
that's in $2,000, right? Think about it
Yeah.
today. So
Oh, yeah.
we think oil is a lot, but it was expensive on purpose.
Mm.
The administration's, these days we call it the deep state, whatever we call it, they were keeping prices high to encourage renewables.
Yeah.
And which is a fine goal, except Exxon found a loophole, which is, hey, we can do it cheaper and just, take over. And that's what
Yeah.
happened. The price of crude dropped to below $50.
Yeah.
And we're like, you know what? We don't have a business model. We're done. We
Interesting.
were
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
Kodak film after digital happened. It's like, oops. Who wants film? Nobody.
Yeah.
So, so then we really had to soul search, and our technology, which was to extract the algae from the water, was
Mhm.
really well suited to extracting sewage from water.
Oh, interesting.
So
Yeah.
we pivoted into the water industry,
Yeah.
and I found out very soon that it's technology phobic. There's many, many technologies out there in water that are not seeing the light of day because they're just
Hmm.
funded. And
Hmm.
this is a problem that we are actively solving today as OriginClear. Now, having finally figured out that technology alone was not going to be a player, we decided to make a transformation of the business of water. And that's where a really key webinar came along from Lux Research in 2016, where they outlined this new trend called decentralization. Now, think about it. We somehow have decided to treat all the dirty water as central location, which means that, okay, household sewage is benign. It's really not toxic, right? It's
Okay.
got some drugs in it, fine, but
Yeah.
mostly easy to treat. The hard
Okay.
stuff comes from the factories.
Ah, okay.
Why are the factories being allowed to
Yeah.
intermingle it with the domestic waste, creating
Why
this huge?
blend it all in? Yeah.
Why
That
not
doesn't make
treat
sense. Yeah.
it where it's being made dirty?
Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah.
When you think about it, it's like, duh, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's decentralization. Here's the interesting part. Those factories, when they see the economics of it, love it.
Hmm.
Here's why. We have a chronic underfunding of water infrastructure in our country today. Back in 2016, Lux was predicting that by 2030, it would be, $150 billion a year net. No, no, no. It's not even that. The newest number from the American Society of Civil Engineers, ASCE, is 430 billion by 2029 per
Wow.
year.
Per year, underfunded or funding needed.
Not unmet requirements.
Unmet requirements. Wow. Yeah.
Why? Because on top of all the neglect and underfunding, we now have the effects of what's commonly called climate change. And we will not discuss climate change in this podcast, but suffice it to say,
It's changing. We just don't
of course, it's
know
changing.
we don't know the exact causes and the different things, and we don't know what ultimately is gonna happen. But yeah, it's obviously the climate's changing, right?
Right. We can
Yeah.
observe that there's storms where
Yeah.
there weren't, droughts where there were
Yeah.
not, floods where
Yeah.
there were not, um, sea level intrusion into Miami, Florida's freshwater aquifer, things like that are
Yeah.
happening all the time.
Yeah.
So that is complicating the problem.
Yeah.
So what's happening is utilities are starting to really hammer their customers with rate hikes.
Yep. Oh yeah.
Utility rates are inflating faster than college tuition and healthcare costs right
Which
now,
is yeah, which have been on a tear forever. Yeah.
right? So we have a real problem here. And
Mhm.
so these industrial clients are like, hey, guess what? I'll get my own system. I won't be part of that inflationary thing because I'll know the cost of my. There it is.
Yeah.
It'll inflate at the rate of the pumps and filters that have to
Hmm.
replace. But so
Hmm.
what? The second important thing is that they can reuse or recycle their water.
Ah, yeah.
Because if you send your dirty water to this, it's gone forever.
Yeah.
The cities don't recycle except in unique places like Las Vegas, which is a model
Mm.
for water conservation. The country as a whole recycles less than 1% of its water, right?
Wow. Wow.
Whereas, Vegas is close to 100%. And what stops other people from doing it? Well,
Yeah.
here's the problem. It's the design of the infrastructure. So we like to say save the planet, recycle water.
Hmm.
Do your own water treatment at your own site. Save money on that. You're isolated from the problem, and you get lower incoming water costs, so you're not affected by droughts and so forth. You're helping the planet. You're getting ESG credits, which still exist to this day.
Hmm. Interesting. Yeah.
And the third thing is you're no longer subject to the politics of the local utility because they get into like
Hmm.
unfunded mandates and that and
Yep.
the other thing. No, as long as you meet permit requirements, you're good.
Yeah.
So basically, it's secession. It's water secession, right? It's like,
Yeah. Water,
okay,
or you could say water independence, right? Yeah. Some people, some
you
people may
know,
like secession. Some people may
yeah, well,
not.
save your Confederate money, both South again.
That's right.
But seriously, they are able to secede or privatize.
Yeah.
And what they do is they exchange the meter. Now, here's the second problem,
Yep.
having realized that is,
Hmm.
okay, now that you've got that, how do I pay for it? I'm a brewery. I make beer. I don't have $1 million for a water treatment system.
Okay. Sierra Nevada does probably here in Asheville. Those
Well,
guys spent like 300 million building their thing. But yeah, your average, yeah, we got 50 brewers here. Yeah, let's say you're small brewery. You're like, no, I can't spend 1 million up front. How do we pay for that?
yeah. And if you want to, by the way, you probably have an SBA loan that's blocking you from getting leases and so forth.
Mm,
You've
mm,
got some secured instruments that are holding you together. And I
hmm.
talk to these people all the time. They're like, I
Yeah.
can't borrow and I can't lease. I can go to a merchant cash advance and then I'll just go out of business. So,
Yeah.
right. So what's the solution? Well, we came up with an idea, which is water as a service, which is that investors buy the system at that brewery,
Okay.
and then the
Yeah.
brewery pays on the meter just like they're
Mhm.
accustomed to a gallon,
Yeah.
and it's and we mediate the whole thing as a fintech, and the
Hmm.
investors, it's just like an oil well. We like to say water like an oil well. Those master limited partnerships that have been around since 1981 are
Hmm.
a very, very good idea. We're doing the same thing, but with water, right?
How about that? Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we've created a
Love
way
it.
to have a frictionless implementation. Look, you can have all this fully maintained. You won't have to get a water expert or anything, and we'll just go ahead and have an accredited investor because we're the
Hmm.
only player in water as a service who actually talks to the everyday investor. And that investor is investing not directly in that machine because that's very complicated, but in a bundle, just like the master limited partnerships.
Yeah.
It's a basket of assets, right?
Yeah.
They have a lien right to enforce the royalty that's built
Hmm.
into their investment.
Hmm.
So it's a secured asset for them, and they receive a royalty from that. Now, in addition, one problem is that master limited partnerships benefit from tax advantages.
Yep.
We don't. So
Okay.
what we do to make up for that is we give them equity in
Okay.
the parent company, OriginClear, and the new
Hmm.
venture, Water on Demand, which is the water as a service company, both of them. Now,
Interesting.
in a minute, I'll tell you what's happening with Water on Demand, which is super
Yeah.
exciting, but maybe you got some questions.
Yeah, no, this is fascinating. And, I tell people, being a numbers guy, having an engineering background, had all these spreadsheets for my wife and I when we were in DC and looking for a new area to live. And Asheville kind of rose to the top. and it was number 3 on my list, but it ended up being number 1. One of the things I learned about Asheville is we have our own water supply from the mountains
Mm.
up high, up kind of just north of here.
It's the
Um,
Blue Ridge Mountains, is it?
yeah, we're in the Blue Ridge Mountains right here.
Cool.
Just Smokies are just to our west, but Asheville's in a temperate rainforest, so we get a ton of rain, ton of water, which is nice. We don't have to rely on a river that can be siphoned off like the Colorado, for instance, and that
Sure,
sort of
sure.
thing. Um, so it's one of those things that made me pretty comfortable from a long-term perspective.
Yeah.
A couple of questions, Riggs. So when you look at somewhere like Vegas, they're getting water from the Colorado, right? Is that where they're getting their water
You're
too?
getting
I'm
it
trying to remember.
from the Colorado, but
Yeah.
a lot of aquifers.
So they get it from aquifers
Well,
as
the
well.
Hoover
Okay.
Dam, right? So that's the
Oh yeah.
close.
Yep. Yep.
And the problem is the Hoover Dam's been going down. It's gotten
Mhm.
down to its um, inlets, right? So
Yeah.
it's actually in deep trouble.
Yeah.
But they also have deep aquifers, artesian
Okay.
wells. They have
Yeah.
ways to get water, but it's finite.
Yeah.
It's quite finite.
Right. Right. Yeah. So that was my question. Like you have to once you get the water though, then you can recycle it. Um, right? Is how you do it. Can you get the water from like rainwater? Can you get it from other sources? Can you do collection? So like if you were in a real dire situation, like how can Vegas get more water if their water supply runs out, for instance, even if they're recycling 100%?
Well, there's a small problem. They don't get a lot of rain.
Right. Yeah.
So there are air harvesting
Hmm.
technologies, harvesting water from the air, but again, it's very dry.
Yeah.
So they're kind of in a pickle,
Yeah.
and but I have to say they're doing an amazing job, and they're a model for the country. You see, if you can recycle, we've
Hmm.
calculated that if okay, industry and agriculture is 90% of all water demand in this country. In other
Okay.
words,
Okay.
humans are only 10% of the demand.
Yeah. Industrial agriculture is
Industrial
taking up the
or
most.
agriculture, those
Yeah.
two categories.
Oh, okay. Industrial or agri. Sorry. Gotcha.
And they vary by country. Like Somalia is mostly agriculture,
Hmm.
right? America it's half and half. And in other countries like, I don't know, Germany, maybe it's more industrial, whatever it is, but it's
Hmm.
90% across the board. And so they dominate in their water use. And what we've calculated is if industry and agriculture recycled just 15% of their
Hmm.
water, we would double the available fresh water availability in this country.
Wow. Yeah, that's so a 15% recycle rate increases 100% of the available fresh water. That's a good payoff.
Yeah.
That's a great payoff.
So, I mean, why aren't we doing it? Well,
Yeah. Are you a high income business owner or professional earning 300,000 or even more a year, but still feel like you're living paycheck to paycheck? Are you comfortable working until you're 65 or 70 to retire? Or do you want to achieve financial independence and live life on your own terms? You could join myself and Matt Four and learn how we both became financially independent in our early 30s. We will teach you how to make, keep, and grow your money, teaching you strategies to maximize your earnings, keep your income that you've earned through tax strategy and legal structures, and ultimately teach you how to grow it by determining your personal investing strategy, as well as teach you how to analyze investments so you can grow your passive income to the point to live life on your own terms. Our coaching clients reliably do this in 7 years or less. To learn more, check out our coaching program at nextlevelincome.com/coaching. That's nextlevelincome.com/coaching.
actually, it is happening, right? So, the water as a service movement has been growing. There are players out there. One of them, but they're all funded by either private equity
Mhm.
or by venture capital. Nobody is offering like what we get with oil wells, an ability for the everyday investor to get a piece of it, right? The only ones doing it, and that comes from the fact that for a long time we have worked with the accredited investor. That's what we do,
Yeah. Yeah.
and we know how to make the accredited investor happy,
Yeah.
right? Because what are some of the problems the accredited investor has? Number one,
Yeah.
time. So much
Mhm.
time goes by before things happen and you make your money, and that also means dilution. So
Mhm.
many early investors get crammed in the early stages, and later on they're like, well, I was an early guy, now I'm nothing. So we pay very close attention to that, and we have everybody who's stuck with us, we have kept whole the entire way. And that means that, they have a huge piece of our venture,
Yeah.
but they are also in good shape. And that's super important because as we're doing this water on demand thing, or this going to the NASDAQ thing, which I can talk about in a bit,
Yeah.
we're positioning Origin to do more of these and to be a water incubator that works with regular investors, not the institutional or VC sector. And that is, it's actually a huge marketplace, right?
Hmm.
And I don't know about you, but I have a really hard time finding places to invest my money. Real estate assets are either at a way high or they're completely crumbled, depending what sector. And the oil and gas should be going up, but it's not. And gold's doing okay, but it should be doing better. Bitcoin is like it's like a black swan. I have no idea, right? So, but here is an opportunity to come in early. Airbnb didn't get to get in early in Airbnb, except Ashton Kutcher did.
Oh
He
yeah.
came in with Sequoia on the A round, and he made 350,000% on his money.
Wow. Yeah.
Well, good for him. I'm not
Yeah.
go for it, dude. I'm glad
Yeah.
even at least one individual got in there.
Yeah.
But what does that mean for the rest of us? We get the pickings, the leftovers, and that's not
Right.
good. So
Yeah.
what I believe is let's give the regular investor a shot at an early space that is just beginning, but it's
Yeah.
huge. Water.
Yeah.
As we break up the water monopoly, is what we're doing, really.
Yeah.
Privatizing the water treatment, then it ends up being a much larger market, more interesting market,
Yeah.
and it solves all kinds of problems. But one thing I want to say is we do not want to replace the fresh water supply. It's not been a good thing where the cities have privatized their freshwater supply, and inevitably it creates problems. We believe that
Mm.
it's governmental trust to supply water, or else get your own from the ground. That's fine
Yeah.
too. But what we're saying is we'll facilitate it, but we're not in the business of privatizing fresh water.
Gotcha.
The real problem is the wastewater.
Yeah.
That's what's causing illness,
Hmm.
um, you know, um, and these forever chemicals that are potentially a
Hmm.
source of all kinds of immune diseases, et cetera. It's all coming from industry. So let's fix that.
Yeah. Interesting. I like that. So, Riggs, one of the challenges that we found when we put solar panels on our house was that, you can't just disconnect from the grid.
Yeah,
You are obligated by law
that's
to
right.
stay connected to the grid, and there's really no way around that. So, do we see similar things in the water system, or how does that work compared to the electricity grid?
Yeah, I noticed that because you're right. The energy companies are very jealous
Yeah.
of their turf and so forth. The water companies, first of all, they're much more they're not as private. They're municipal. They're not. So they're
Gotcha.
typically governmental entities, and they're like,
Okay.
great, great. I can't handle it. I just got a mandate from the EPA to move all of the forever chemicals from my water. Oh, they didn't give me money to do it with.
Gotcha.
The EPA put out a mandate this year, get rid of forever chemicals, which they need to.
Hmm.
And here's $5 billion. There's 150,000 um, sewage plants in America. $5 billion is like nothing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's an unfunded mandate. And so these people are like, God, okay, fine. You'll take the problem away. Good, good. Get them off my plate. Because what's the natural constituency for a municipal water system? It's the people.
Yeah.
It's the people,
Right.
as they might have said back in the
Yeah.
day. So we want to serve the people. And that means, like in Ireland, water is free. Well, why wouldn't it be free here? Well, it's because 90% of the usage is by corporate. So let's get those guys off the grid, and they're
Yeah.
delighted to. So that's our mission.
Interesting. I love that. I love it. Okay, so we've kind of talked about some of the history behind this, Riggs. You said you guys are now looking to go public and do that. Let's
Yeah.
talk a little bit about that.
Okay, so back in late 2022, this fabulous lawyer that we have said, "Why don't you get acquired by a SPAC,
Mhm.
right? Special Purpose Acquisition Company, blank check company," and at the time and now there were too many of them. They're all dying. There's still about 500 of them, but they're all just kind of just running out of time because they
Mhm.
only get they just for instance, they get funded with $100 million, let's say, and they
Mhm.
have 2 years to go find a company. And there's minority holders that are called the sponsors. They don't put money. They are the sweat. And they own about 25% of the company. And their job is to go get that deal done. And so you find a company where that has failed. They've gotten to the end of their rope. They're out of steam. They're done. And you say, okay, you buy out the sponsor. They go away. $500,000. Bye-bye. Go away. Now you're the sponsor. Now you say to the SPAC, you are now the sponsor. You say, let's buy that company over there, which is you.
Gotcha.
And fully disclosed. I mean, it's out in the open. There's no secret about it. We're making it clear that's how it's done. But so we decided that we would do this. But the one problem is that OriginClear, its cap table was a bit complicated for rapid action. So we decided to take that new water on demand venture and put it up to be the target. And in order to make it valuable, we took, two existing divisions. So water on demand itself had the mission, still has, of doing these water as a service deals, right? So it's a pure fintech, but still in development stage. It doesn't yet have a customer. It's still, these water deals take forever. So it's got no revenue. So what we did is we took two divisions that are in revenue, growing fast, merged them into that, and then we achieved valuation sufficient to meet the regulatory requirements to be acquired. And so now our baby, Water on Demand, is now up and is going to college. And Water on Demand is going to be acquired. There's a filing called S4 that's currently going on right now with the SEC, the NASDAQ application process. And of course, I can't discuss how it's going or when it's going to be, but it's a process, and it will end, I'm told. So then we'll have OriginClear will have big ownership of that NASDAQ company. And then we'll turn our talents to more of the startups. And to do that, we've launched a crowdfunding for OriginClear. So this is called Regulation A, which is for anyone to fund those activities. But the accredited investors, they get a piece of Water on Demand. And that's the difference. So they get that royalty play, they get equity in Water on Demand, they get equity in OriginClear. It's a beautiful thing. And because they, Regulation A is very powerful, but you have to build a head of steam. And so Kevin Harrington got very excited about us. And so he came on board. He's now championing our crowdfunding. It's going to be a lot.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's going to get a lot of visibility and a lot of small investors, and they will participate because OriginClear, which is currently a penny stock, presumably will appreciate based on owning a chunk of this NASDAQ company, whatever its fate is. But in addition, all the new incubation deals that we'll do to take some promising technology or company, package it, clean it up, make sure it's going to succeed, get it funded, and then take it out through various means. You don't want to leave companies on the OTC. You only get drip funding. The OTC is not what it was when I started 16 years ago. It's been regulated to a point where it was too many people took advantage of people like you and me, and so
Wolf without Wall Street, right? Or Wolf on Wall Street, right?
Oh my! Well, no, but you're so right. And on top of the toxic lenders, I mean, it's been a party for Wall Street. But NASDAQ is good, NYSE is good, and now there's that new Texas exchange I just heard about today. TXL, I think it's called. It's BlackRock and Citadel are sponsoring a stock exchange in Texas that will rival the NASDAQ and then NYSE.
How about that? Look at that.
So those are good. And so our job will be to get these on and then either acquired by a big water company or become itself a big player.
Yeah, wild. So Riggs, I want to continue this conversation. I love this topic. For listeners that want to learn more about OriginClear, that may want to get involved, what's the best way to contact you guys?
All right. Well, the simple way is to go to originclear.com, and there's a green Invest Now button. And that takes you straight to a video by the amazing Ken Berenger, who helped me create Water on Demand. He is so knowledgeable, and they will have an opportunity to speak personally to him. This, I don't think, will be for long, because he's just running out of, he's working 12 hours a day, he's talking to people, but there's still a chance to talk to one of the originators. So that's what I recommend. Noodle around the OriginClear site, jump on to our LinkedIn, the OriginClear LinkedIn, and also mine, Riggs Eckelberry, Riggs Eck. And on Twitter, on X, I'm Riggs Eck. And so, but the important thing is get into those videos. Don't forget that green button. It's got a whole lot of interviews we did with the NASDAQ and all that. And here's what's happening. That, Chris, we are at the early stage. One water industry CEO said that the first trillionaire will be in water, right?
Wow.
Well, we don't think so. We want 1 million millionaires.
Oh, there you go.
We want to democratize it. Enough of this big guy stuff. You know what happened during COVID? It was the wealthiest got 3.8 trillion, and the poorest lost 3.8 trillion. An even exchange, no more. Yeah. So we want us to get a piece of this new asset class.
Love that. Love that. We'll have all these links in the show notes, Riggs. If you're listening today, you can check all that out. You can check out OriginClear at originclear.com. And we're going to keep following this story. Thank you so much, Riggs, for joining us today, sharing your story and sharing more about your mission at OriginClear.
Such a pleasure. Thank you, Chris.
Hey, Chris here again. I hope you found this episode valuable. Now, I have one more thing to gift you. We have a page for my coaching clients where you can get a free copy of my book, as well as much more from previous guests on the show. Just check out nextlevelincome.com/coaching to get a free copy of my book, audiobook, and much more. I'll send you a copy of my book and cover all the shipping costs as a thank you for listening to the podcast. Also, please like, share, and take just 90 seconds to give us a rating on Apple Podcasts.